fight was still alive when the boys won in '96. Last Super Bowl they played, LeBron was in 5th grade. Tupac was still alive when the boys won in '96. The last time the boys won, there was nothing on Netflix. Tupac was alive to see them win in '96. The last Super Bowl they played, LeBron was under 5'8". Tupac was alive to see them win in '96.
Hello and welcome to the One Star Cowboys podcast. I'm Kevin Turner with Saad, Yousuf, and Father John Machota. They are live out in California because they're still covering Cowboys training camp. Kent Garrison off this week. He had some duties with the day job out of town, but that's all right. I think we can handle it. Maybe the whole train won't go off the tracks. The One Star Cowboys podcast, relatively new to the podcasting scene, so give it a follow if you would. Spotify, Apple. Got a little Discord set up if you want to talk Cowboys. And today we're talking about preseason game number 2, where the Cowboys got that big 27-12 crucial must-win game over the Las Vegas Raiders. And we'll start with you, John. I got to say, pretty good night.
You know, the thing that stood out to me the most, just being in that stadium, first of all, I really wanted to go because it's one of a few stadiums I haven't been to yet, and Allegiant is really nice. It's a very nice stadium, but it also made me appreciate AT&T Stadium. AT&T is just it almost makes you feel like you could put Allegiant inside of AT&T Stadium. It's just not as big as I was expecting for it being a newer stadium like that, but it really made me think of, especially that the last preseason game was at SoFi. AT&T really holds up. It's 15 years old now. I mean, I still think it's one of the top 5 stadiums in the sport. But no, anyway, a lot of Cowboys fans, as you would expect, the most fired up preseason crowd I've ever been a part of. And I think it factored in that it's an open air press box. But I mean, the Brandon Aubrey 66-yarder that we'll talk about, I mean, that place was rocking like it was a game-winning field goal of a regular season game when he hit that. And it's kind of surprised me a little bit because maybe it just, we're cynical and we downplay these preseason games. Say, hey, I'm going to focus on a few players. We'll get a little bit out of it. No one really cares if they win or lose, whatever. But there were a lot of people into that game. So, if you're a Cowboys fan, there was a lot of positives to take from that. I think number one for me is that there were still starters playing for the Raiders into the third quarter. Yeah. And the Cowboys were playing virtually no starters outside of Tyler Guyton, who played the first half, and Cooper Beebe, who played a couple of series early on at center, started the game, and then he played later on in the game as well. But outside of that, when you look at the guys that would probably be starting week 1 against Cleveland, there weren't many guys out there for the Cowboys, and the Raiders had several of their guys, including their second-team defense, making their quarterback, Gardner Minshew, look not very good. And Minshew, as we record this podcast, was just named as their starter for week 1. So that was a good sign for what was most of the Cowboys' backups, like guys like Maris Leafau, Marshawn Nealon, a couple of the rookies that stood out to me. Wanted to see Mazi Smith, didn't get to see Mazi Smith. He had an allergic reaction. We haven't been able to get the specifics on exactly what it was, but it happened on Friday as they boarded the team buses here in Oxnard to go to the airport and fly to Las Vegas. And Mike McCarthy said after the game that he's doing a lot better. But it was kind of a scary situation because as McCarthy was getting on the bus, they were getting Mazi off the bus, and they were concerned. But there still was some hope that maybe if he could possibly be available the next day and they would fly him out, but that didn't happen. Maybe that's something if it would have been a regular season game. So a little disappointing not to be able to see him, but it sounds like he's doing well health-wise, so that's great. But yeah, I'll throw it to Saad, but because Saad focused on Trey Lance for this game, and I think that he was probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I think Trey Lance for me looked a lot better, obviously from the first game, but I think the bar was also kind of low. The first game was not very good for him. So I think overall, as the game went on, I thought Lance got better, and I think the two long drives obviously stand out, but to me, it was kind of that first drive that really stood out because it was a 14-play drive that ended in that touchdown to Ryan Flournoy. And 5 of the first 7 plays were run plays to Royce Freeman and Deuce Vaughn. And once the run game kind of got established, 4 of the last 7 plays were Trey Lance plays, whether they're pass plays or even Trey Lance keeping it for a big first down on 3rd and 1. So it felt like as the circumstances around him kind of settled down a little bit, he got better. Overall, there was still some of those same hiccups that you saw, whether it's, late reads, inaccurate throws. For me, that I know some people looked at that first Flournoy incompletion that he had on the first drive. It was a little high. Still think Flournoy should have caught that. But the second one to Jalen Cropper on the in route, I mean, that's one that to me, like, sure, Cropper got his hands on it, but that ball was behind him. Cropper really didn't have a great chance at it. So, ups and downs overall, but definitely a better game than his first one.
Yeah, and I want to mention everyone, Saad's got a piece up on The Athletic, like John said, focused on Trey Lance's outing. John has a piece up on The Athletic with all the game observations. Make sure you go read that. And just from my takeaway is watching Trey Lance, it's kind of that thing where you really wish that he was a guy who you had drafted 3-4 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago. You know, develop him because there's the small incremental improvement, right? And then we can grow that, and maybe there's incremental improvement into preseason game 3, and then who knows when your quarterback could potentially be a free agent, like that. That's where it becomes really problematic, just the situation, and it's I don't know. I hate to just lean on it's a Cowboys thing. It's not, but like. This is like what developing a quarterback feels like. We haven't seen that, and I don't know why we don't talk about Cooper Rush the same way. Cooper Rush is young. The Cowboys have developed him into a very good backup quarterback. It's just the upside with Trey Lance is so obvious, and you see it, and that little improvement I thought was good because he's not – I agree with Saad. Like, you see like the accuracy and things like that, a little bit of issues there, but I'm like that he's not playing scared, and I've seen some guys come in and just get happy feet and just kind of look like they don't know what's going on. Boy, he looked pretty comfortable. And he also, to me, I still am, we can figure this out later on. I feel like he can help you in some way, whether that's a package of 5 or 6 plays that he's on the field on. I think he can help you in the regular season. And that's where the Cowboys are going to have some roster building issues and things like that. But overall, man, there's not a lot to be unhappy about if you're the Cowboys outside of you didn't get to see Mozzie play.
The thing about the packages, though, is that you'd have to feel confident he could be your backup because you really can't have 3 quarterbacks active during a regular season game. And I don't know that he's done anything that would make you feel more comfortable than having Cooper Rush as your backup. I don't think that we've reached to that level yet, especially what Cooper Rush has done in the past few years as a starter when they've needed him to come in a pinch. And so that's the only part there. Now, I could see them potentially keeping 3 quarterbacks on the initial 53, but on game days to have more than 2 active would surprise me. But I thought it was interesting, too, on the pregame show, Jerry Jones was talking about how, if this is a regular season game, Trey Lance would be using his legs more, but because it's preseason, we want to see more of him in the pocket. And we did see more of them. I would say both these games are more preseason type. Let's see more from him in the pocket. Now, he threw 41 times in the first preseason game, only 23 times this game. 41 was too many. They didn't want to see that, but it did make me wonder when Jerry said that, what would that look like during a regular season game? He ran 7 times in this game. I feel like in a regular season game, like the Cowboys have to win, I bet you he runs like 10, maybe more times, depending on what he sees, because that is his greatest strength right now is his athleticism. But then again, if he was playing in a regular season game too, he'd have a better offensive line in front of him. He would be playing with better wide receivers, but of course he'd probably be going against some better defenses as well. He said the key for him was, he was more comfortable, more confident. It's a positive step. I just don't know if it's enough of a step where you'd be like, yeah, he'd be your better option as the backup quarterback over Cooper Rush right now.
This sounds great. I agree with you, by the way. I was thinking about this while I was watching the game, though. I was sitting there going, man, if I was the Raiders, I would rather have, and whatever this season is, I would rather just see what Trey Lance is than run Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell out there. Like I was
Well, how about
thinking,
this? When I was watching the game, all I kept thinking about is what if that's the Cowboys next year? If they don't bring back Dak, what if those are the preseason game? Hey, you can take O'Connell. We'll throw O'Connell in. We'll throw in Minshew, and we'll throw in Trey Lance. What if you're sitting there doing those preseason games, watching those three guys battle it out? I mean, when I'm watching that Raiders team, I don't know how you guys felt about it last night, but I'm like, what is this like a 6-win team?
yeah, I might have thought that coming into the year, anyways. I mean,
To be honest, I kind of forgot that they were in a quarterback competition. I thought it was just kind of, these are all the backups. Their number one guy just isn't even playing, until I realized, wait, no, one of these guys is their number one guy.
yeah.
Oh, and the other part about the Dak thing too would be, I would think that, I mean, I think they're probably going to trade Devontae Adams at some point. The Raiders will, but the Raiders could be a team that makes a run at Dak if he hits free agency next March. So that was another thought that crossed my mind. But it's tough watching football when those are your two guys competing for the starting quarterback job. So I get it for everybody that, I get the frustration totally of not being able to get it done in January, but it obviously could be a lot worse.
Oh, no doubt it could be a lot worse. Absolutely it could. Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. Like those teams that keep coming up as that could be a team that would be interested in Dak if it got there. I don't feel like it'll get there. Still don't feel like it'll get there. Maybe we don't need to talk about that too much in this podcast episode. There might be a lot of Cowboys fans who are just tired of hearing about Dak's contract and things like that, but you're going to hear about it until it gets done. But I think, like, when you look at the grand scheme of things, I mean, first of all, just good football energy happening, which is good to see, and rookies contributing, which we didn't get a lot of last year. I mean, Tyler Guyton, you mentioned a little bit earlier, Maris Leufau, all over the place. You saw them, or Maris Leufau was flying over the field, clearly, and Tyler Guyton was really good. Got to be thrilled with that, because that something that definitely could have helped the team last year if you had two or three guys really helping you along the way.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to look back a few years from now to see what they end up getting out of last year's rookie class. And the only reason I say that is because they've been able to get something out of every rookie class. And that one kind of stands out to me, that it kind of leaves you scratching your head that there haven't been any really a player raised to a level. Obviously, Mozzie Smith is the face of it, and Schoonmaker being the second round pick. But this rookie class, that what we've seen so far, whether it's out at training camp or in these two preseason games, looks more like the traditional rookie class the Cowboys have had for the better part of the last decade, where you can see a few guys that you're like, I think they make an immediate impact, and their ceiling in the next few years or beyond is pretty nice. Like they could have multiple cornerstone pieces here, and so that's obviously refreshing to see from a Cowboys perspective.
Yeah, and I also think that the fact that Cooper Beebe, the way that he played, I feel like it's going to be hard for Brock Hoffman to get the starting job back. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but Beebe looked really good, and to think that this was a bonus pick, this was like what you got to trade down to get Tyler Guyton. So you got your left tackle and potentially your starting center in that same deal. That's really that was a really good deal. And for the Cowboys, for their last year draft, we'll see what happens with Mozzie. I still think Overshown can be a really good player if he can stay healthy. And then Deuce Vaughn continues to be just the preseason darling. And I don't know if that's ever going to translate to the regular season, but if it does, I mean, he has a little bit of pop and a little bit of juice in him, but I just don't know how. Like, we've seen this once already, so it's going to take me post-September to really buy stock now at this point.
Well, and then the other thing is, too, I guess, when I talk about last year, the Cowboys rookie class, Deuce Vaughn included, obviously, I'm talking about who they drafted, because the best rookie that they had last year, and it looks like that he will continue to carry that on, and we saw that last night, is just Brandon Aubrey. I mean, it's pretty interesting to see that how it makes it stand out how tough it is to kick in Oxnard, because it's pretty windy.
Yeah.
We're outside. Last year, early in camp, there wasn't a lot from Aubrey that made you think, oh yeah, this guy's the no doubt guy. But it's just like, it seems like every week, every game, every month that goes by, he just gets more and more confident. And I mean, he absolutely looks like he's one of, if not the best kickers in football right now. Again, showing it last night, that 66-yarder right before half. I mean, what a lift to have that type of a play in a regular season game. what that would have done for them. Or heck, if it's, you know, a late game situation where, you know, you're down by 2 or you're tied, and or even you're down by 3 and you're looking to tie the game, and you have a weapon like that, hey, just try and get him within 70 yards and he could possibly make something happen, is so big. And for the way he's been on just long field goals, how automatic he's been, is it's just so crazy to go back to what he looked like when we first saw him in Oxnard last year to what he's become now. It's almost like it's easy to like look past, but it needs to be emphasized because it's their kicker situation was one that we obviously heavily dissected last year, and it looked pretty dire there for a while, and they certainly look like they've hit a home run there.
Yeah, and also just on that as well, like as I'm watching these new kickoff rules come into play, I'm just thinking, like, I know this is for down the road, but if the kickoff return percentage doesn't return to the kind of success that they want to have, and then they move this like touchback thing out to the 35 or the 40 in future years, I mean, you're looking at a guy, like if your field position becomes that short, I'm talking in future years, and you have a kicker like that who you just need to get 1 first down and you might be in field goal range, or a couple first downs and you're in field goal range, like that could be really crazy down the road as well if the kickoff rules change.
Dude, no doubt. Like, certainly playing indoors, get the ball to the 50-yard line and you've got a chance. And that's quite the weapon to have. And glad he's on our team. The other thing I wanted to throw out on the Deuce Vaughn thing, which I think is, I mean, look, it's fun, right? You see someone that slippery and move around. I think we are at a point where we had a lot of guys trying to get some carries. They wanted to try to figure out what this depth chart looks like. And Royce Freeman's got to go earn it. And Malik Davis is going to have to earn it. And all these things are happening. Zeke and Rico can just kind of chill. You guys are good. You guys are going to get a boatload of carries. A lot of these guys are just playing for tape for other teams and roster cuts because the Cowboys just aren't going to be able to keep that many guys. And I don't know what to do with Deuce Vaughn. I mean, you see the burst in the preseason like we did last year and like we did last night, and you absolutely go, well, maybe he could return a kick here. Or maybe and then you get to the regular season and you saw nothing, and maybe that's how things get blocked up and all that stuff. I don't know. It's such a confusing thing. I don't even know. But he was highly productive in college, and that's not a fluke. Like what he did in college in the Big 12 was not a fluke. So I don't know. But that'd be a hard guy to just go, well, see ya. We just don't have enough spaces. Here's another guy. It's Malik Davis. Like, that'd be tough. So,
well, I think go ahead, John.
I was just thinking, I wonder if his size factors into that because he had a real nice 12-yard run. I mean, I think it was the highlight play in terms of just juking a guy out, freezing him, turning into this 12-yard run on his second carry, and you're just like, oh, keep feeding that guy. But I wonder if that factors in his size and things like that. Like even if it was a regular season game, normally if you're running back, it's looks like he's in a rhythm. I think his first 3 carries, he had 25 yards. But I wonder if they protect him a little bit too because of his size. And the problem there is that wasn't going on at Kansas State. At Kansas State, he knows he's getting touches and you can build a rhythm in that as opposed to being like a third down back or not knowing from game to game if you're going to get 10 touches or no touches. And so I think that's part of the issue there too. But I mean, it's a solid running back room. It's not like they have any real bell cow guys where you're like, well, it's obviously this player because he's so far better than everybody else. So it's more of a mixed bag than it's really been for the last probably decade for the Cowboys. So what I'm saying, I find it hard to believe they can't get him out there for at least, a handful of plays here and there.
Yeah.
And also on the roster part, KT, where you're saying like who gets on the 53. If I'm building the roster, I don't really look at this running back room as like I'm scared that someone's going to pick up Malik Davis or something. If you're trying to stash guys on the practice squad and you want to give Deuce Vaughn a look and then you're like, okay, this really isn't working, like you'll probably still have Malik Davis and Royce Freeman or whoever still there on your practice squad if you really wanted them, bring them up. Snoop Connor, however down you want to go. Rico's the only guy that I think you would even think in this room that gets picked up by another team, but outside of that, if you really want to give Deuce a look, like you can give him a look and you'll still have your other guys on your practice squad.
Yeah.
And to Saad's point with a lot of those other running backs he mentioned, what about other teams? Like, what about those guys and their teams that are going to be available when they cut down to 53? And so I just don't think it's a tough decision because there's really be nobody that they would let go that would be on the bubble that I think that you're just like, man, you can't let that guy go. That's just going to totally, that's a huge loss. Someone's going to pick that guy up right away. I think there'll be some good players available, even if you do let some of those running backs go. And I do think that there's a decent chance that some of them were able to make them back in the practice squad.
You see, if I was a jerk, I would ask, shouldn't Zeke have to earn his job here? But I'm not a jerk, so I'm not going to ask that question. But I don't think I didn't think it, because we'll just wait and see. See till the season starts. So, you guys, obviously next Saturday, the 24th, is preseason game 3. Again, we'll talk about the defense. I have a few things I want to bring up on the defense in a minute, but the next preseason game is the 24th. It's the Chargers, Saturday the 24th, and that is. Do you guys think? I know McCarthy will speak on it later in the week. Do you guys think Dak will play at all, or do you think we're just going to roll?
No, I think everything's going to keep going the way it has these previous 2 preseason games. I mean, it's interesting during the pregame warmups how you can just tell who's not playing. And last night was a great example of it. I mean, you could tell early on. I mean, we knew like the Dak and Zach Martins weren't going to go, but then it's like, oh yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence, Mike, all these guys that. Forget not even going, but they're not even in, they're in street clothes, So no, I don't see that. I don't see any, Trayvon Diggs or Deron Bland or really any of the starters. I'm interested to see it, to be honest with you. Something we haven't talked about from this game is, and he didn't play a ton, but we got to see a little bit of Jordan Phillips, who they traded for at defensive tackle from the Giants. I wonder if he gets a little bit more just because he's kind of coming to the team late. I don't think that they would trade a 6th round, even though it's a 6th, 7th round swap, if they didn't think that this guy had a good chance at making the roster. So maybe someone like that. But I think they wanted to see more out of like the guys that we saw against the Raiders, the guys we saw against the Rams, Trey Lance, Leofau, Flournoy, Nealon, guys like that. Yeah. And also, let me add this in here too. Another thing that was interesting that Jerry said on the pregame show was that he made reference to how you can add some defensive linemen, particularly in the interior, when other teams, as we get closer to cut down and stuff like that. The way he worded it, it was in a very Jerry, like long-winded way, but it really made it sound like they're not done on that defensive line. And it kind of goes back to, if you told me right before free agency that this team was going to go into the season and not have Sam Williams and Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler, I would say, well, they're going to make a move for another edge. And I think it would be more than Carl Lawson. I don't think that move is the only thing, or, obviously they added Shaka Toney and that didn't work out, but I don't think they're done on that defensive line. I think that there's at least another move to be made there with like a veteran type player. So I'm interested to see what that might be. Yeah, no,
definitely need to do something. And I was going to talk about some of the defensive line. The guys like Marshawn Nealon was great. Jesus, he's violent. He's violent with players sometimes. And then then it took me back because there was a play that was made by someone who was in the headlines this week, and I realized that we haven't podcasted since last week. So Albert Huggins had a little bat down. John, you were on the scene as always. You had the video. Mr. Viral again. We need to take you to a doctor, get you checked out for a viral infection as much as you've been going viral, buddy. What are we doing? How I would have cut him on the spot, but that's easy for me to say. What are we doing?
Yeah, that surprised me. Their previous practice against the Rams, he actually had some flash plays in those drills to make me think, oh, yeah, there's some upside here. And they must feel that way too, because if that's a guy that they knew for sure, no doubt about it, they're cutting that guy, I think that they would have done it. They would have kicked him off the team right after that. He didn't practice for the rest of that practice after pushing that Rams staff member to the ground. It was in a drill where, that person is just back there to just pretend to be the quarterback. You're not really supposed to hit them, let alone push them to the ground. And so that was a really bad look. All my training camp practices I've ever covered, I can't think of another time where a player did something like that. And it was so evident because of how little reaction you got from your own teammates to defend that player's action. It was very much like, don't run back over here. What are you doing? So yeah, it was fascinating. I was standing with Saad when it happened, because those drills, those one-on-one pass rush versus defensive line drills, they go on one part of the field when like the other side is just doing some special teams work that isn't as intriguing. And so Micah hasn't done them. DeMarcus Lawrence, the top players aren't getting involved in those drills, but it has been a good spot to watch like a Mozzie Smith, to watch like a Marshawn Nealon. but you could just tell things were ratcheting up in that practice. They were probably getting, kind of annoyed with practicing against. I mean, that was their second practice with the Rams after just playing them in a preseason game. So yeah, interesting moment there.
Yeah, and
I thought Huggins did flash though, and
yeah,
like you said, KT, like he there was a bat down. There was a couple of times where he was kind of pressuring and stuff, and I think like the phrase that comes to mind is beggars can't be choosers. I mean, for the Cowboys at that position, if you're a beggar, I mean, you're just if there's a little bit of talent, you have to give it a shot.
It was just such a shocking video, but part of the video that's so amazing to me is when he runs back, the few Rams players who were not in the drill chase him, but the Rams players who were in the drill, they had no interest in really accosting him about it. So it's like, and then you get to the Cowboys players, and he goes like, oh, there's a lot of WTH going on. What the heck, man? What are we doing? It was just a wild week. I don't know. And I also think it's weird. I don't think you should have a joint practice with the team you just had a preseason game with. Like, I don't think you should do that. I could be wrong, just in case something carried over. But that poor guy, that poor coach's son or the intern or whatever that was, tough, man. Not wearing pads, just get thrown down by a 330-pound guy. That is not a good day.
I think part of that, what went into it, is that the first practice against the Rams went so well. There were no fights, no injuries, not that I can think of. Nothing major came out of it. And then you play in the preseason game, things went pretty well. The reason why I kind of like the practice against another team and why I also think the Cowboys do is because you got to look at it from their perspective of they're not really trying to play any starters in the preseason. So that was your chance, if you're a starter, to get working against another team. That almost those two practices were like Dak's preseason games.
Yeah.
And so for Saad and I to be out there, we're very in favor of it. Like if they want to practice against other teams every day, we would be just fine with it because when you see on the schedule the two words mock game, I mean, that is just those are these just walkthrough practices where it just, you can get, hey, look, Cooper Beebe's lining up with the ones and stuff, but it's very not something that's that interesting for the fans to watch or for reporters. So when they were practicing against other teams, I was all about that. And up until that Albert Huggins situation, I thought that both teams handled it pretty well.
I want to talk about the secondary a little bit because we are going to have some tough decisions on cut down day in the secondary. I do believe Wanye Thomas looks great again. Good Lord. Mukwamu getting in there, getting in the mix a little bit. Very nice. And then, of course, as a UNT guy, we have to talk about Keemon Hall and his big play. But there are going to be some tough decisions to be made with guys that they might really like. But you can't carry everyone, clearly. But I thought that was a very impressive. And then that's new acquisition Booth, who got burned on the first play, but he made up for it and had a pretty good night overall, I thought.
Yeah, I thought, Booth in particular, he was a willing tackler. That was something that really stood out about his game. Kalen Carson obviously is somebody that's had a really good camp, didn't play, but he's had a great camp. I believe it was wisdom teeth, right, John?
I think so.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so, and then Mukwamu is a guy, man, that I'm telling you, when you look at him, when he walks out on the field and stuff, he looks the part. And then, I've been around him enough in the locker room and stuff where I'm like, I kind of understand why he hasn't been able to put it all together yet. But at the same time, like Keemon Hall had a great, he's had a couple of good days in practice as well in the last week or two. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot of tough decisions on that. But a lot of those guys do have special teams value, so I think that should help help their cases in whatever they do.
Yeah, and I think like the defense is going to be fun to just follow in general. It's a little different with Mike Zimmer, and we're going to see obviously what he actually throws out in the regular season. It's hard to know right now, but it does feel like they're going to be playing a little more zone than maybe they were last year. And I don't know if that's been a Mike Zimmer thing in his career, if that's something that he's liked doing, but just using the pass rush combinations once you do get Micah in there is going to be really fun to see because Marshawn Nealon looks like he can do a little bit of everything for you right now. I know he's probably going to play behind Tank, once we get going, but man, he may be a guy you have to have out there all the time. And this is where I look at the Cowboys and I sit there and go, okay, they just beat the Raiders in the preseason game, so I'm not going to get it. But as the preseason goes on, and I've noticed this from fan base as well, I've noticed this when Micah's brother tweets at me, like people are starting to come around on, what do you mean the roster is not as good as it was last year? It's like, well, going into camp, I don't think the roster was as good as it was last year. But now you tell me Marshawn Nealon's playing a lot, and Cooper Beebe and Tyler Guyton starting. And you can find yourself talking yourself into, okay, even though they did nothing in free agency, maybe this is a better roster than last year. And that seems silly to me, but it might end up being possible. What do you guys think?
I got questions on the defensive line for it to be that way, because if you told me that Sam Williams was healthy and, hey, this is year 3, he's shown signs that he's got that kind of special athleticism for a man his size, I would think, okay, hey, that fills in. You got Nealon and him to replace Fowler and Dorrance. Well, with Sam Williams out, you don't have that. So I still have question marks there. Still question marks at defensive tackle. Hey, if Phillips can go ahead and be Jonathan Hankins' replacement, then at least you're even. I don't know that he would be better than Hankins, just judging by the compensation they gave up. Let's be honest, from just hearing things from people that cover the Giants, it sounds like Phillips was the guy that wasn't going to make their team anyway. Yeah. So let's just pump the brakes there. Running back, I have concerns just because of the fact of you don't have Tony Pollard, and there's just a lot more question marks there. So it's hard for me to make the argument that it would be a better roster. I think if it ends up being just as good of a roster, it's another 12-win team that ends up being a top half seed in the playoffs. I think they'd be thrilled by that. I just need to see more. There's a guy by the name of CeeDee Lamb who still isn't at camp. I think CeeDee will be fine when he gets back, and I do think that everything will get figured out, but it is one of those things where, is it going to be fine for a receiver not to do anything in the preseason and then just going to hit the ground running week 1? Is there going to be some type of a ramp up period there? So there's some things that make me kind of wonder if it's going to be as good as it was last year. I wouldn't pick that right now. I think they're a 9-10 win team, which would put them as probably more of a wild card. But I would say the game in Vegas, it gave you some confidence in what could be potentially some young up and comers that could have, they could be some good depth that maybe you weren't expecting, before. So I'll give you that, but I would agree with you, KT. I don't think it's as good of a roster as it was last year at this time.
Yeah, and also on that point, I think you also have to account for injuries. They were very healthy last year. They lost Leighton, Trayvon, and CJ Goodwin, and is that it? Am I missing someone? Leighton, Trayvon. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all. I
guess
Overshown, I guess, in the preseason. But yeah, that's basically all you lost last year. Are they going to have another year this year where they're going to make it through that healthy? I don't know. We'll see. Sam Williams being out is one thing, but there are parts of the team where the defensive line, it's either even or took a small step back, but at the same time, linebacker to me took a big step forward. So there's a little bit here or there. I think overall, at best, I think I see them being an equal roster. I don't know about going as far as to say that it's a better roster.
Yeah. In other NFL news, Stephon Gilmore signs with the Vikings on a 1-year deal. So former Cowboy.
Him and Nahshon Wright reunited.
Yes. Obviously, another week of practices and all that good stuff. John and Saad will have you covered. Make sure that you're following them online. Before we get out of here, I have to ask John, as just a fan, you saw a top 5 favorite band of mine in Las Vegas during their residency, 20 years since their first album, Hot Fuss. The Killers, live at Caesar's Palace. I need a quick John Machota review.
It was very good. They played all the hits. That was my second time seeing them. I saw them back in probably the mid-2000s when they were first really becoming a huge band, obviously, that they became. Really cool show. It was at Caesar's Palace at their thing they call the Coliseum, so it's about 4,000 people. And then with them being a band that's from Las Vegas, it was really cool for them to be kind of in their hometown type thing. They played for about 2 hours. And I'm not as big of a fan as you are, but I like a lot of their songs and all of my favorite songs they played. But it as much as I enjoyed it, I'm telling you, the best karaoke I've ever seen is you doing Killers. And so I thought about it a lot when they were doing some of their songs. I'm like, I think they're good, but I think KT could fill in and maybe step in if Brandon Flowers needed a replacement from time to time. But yeah, no, they were really good. They did not disappoint. I was very happy that I did that the night before the game against the Raiders. I will say this: did the 5 hour drive there with Todd Archer. That was fine. Then did the 5 hour drive back after the game was over. So got back here around 5 a.m. and didn't get a lot of sleep. So I think I'm starting to get sick. So
Oh,
I'm
no.
about ready to be back home in Dallas. I think I've pushed this body to the limits over the last few weeks.
Well, it's 103 degrees right now back home, just so you know. So enjoy the
Oh,
weather.
and it was in Las Vegas too, my friend.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was definitely there as well. Yes.
Take some vitamin C,
Yes.
let's stay healthy here. Training camp is, look, you're training for the season. So if you're going to get sick, it's part of it, man. Get it out of the way before the season gets going. It's a grind. Everyone says it's a grind. We're in the dog days of training camp now. We can't have you getting sick, but do what you got to do, man. This is
People have not lived until they've seen KT screaming over and over again. I've got soul, but I'm not a soldier. So
I mean, it's true. It's my favorite song of all time. All these things I've done. It's a wonderful song.
that was great.
All right, guys. Well, we'll talk the next time that we talk. Kent is the guy who kind of whips us into shape with, our schedule and things like that. Obviously, if there's anything that goes down with CD or Dak during the week, we will have you covered with an emergency podcast, something like that. So give us a follow, Spotify, Apple. We're on Discord if you want to get in the chat a little bit, have a good time there. And make sure you're following John and Saad's work over on The Athletic and on social media as well. I'm at KT Fun Tweets anywhere, and I love talking Cowboys with you as well. So for Father John Machota, for Saad Yousuf, for me, Kevin, and for Kent, who's not with us, but it's fine. He'll be here next time. We are the One Star Cowboys Podcast. See you next time.